think my advice for young people is find out what your routine is, but always hold yourself accountable. It can change. And don't look left, don't look right at what anybody else is doing. Just focus on yourself.
Amazing advice, Jill. I see, in your career, we're sort of sat here now, obviously, after you've retired, and I'm lucky enough to be sat with you talking about your, the ins and outs of your football. But there have been moments in your career. You've played in loads of cup finals. You've played in Euros, World Cups, Olympic Games. You've scored in all those tournaments. Like the list of big moments in your career is quite endless, really. But in those big moments, like I haven't experienced many, but in those big games where it matters and performance matters and results matter, how have you been able to so consistently produce and to play well and to be part of successful teams more often than you haven't been able to?
I think being part of successful teams is the big one. I was lucky enough to play with such amazing players throughout my career. In Manchester City, we had Carly Lloyd, and I remember her mindset. We played the FA Cup final here at Wembley, and I just remember her being such a big player for big moments. And then you talk about all the players at England. I got to play with Kelly Smith, Farrah Williams, and I think looking at them players, that was the level. You had to show up, especially in them big moments. And I always say with club football versus international, I felt like with club football, it was about getting that consistency in your performance. So making sure you're training, you were consistent in that. So you got your consistent performances every weekend. I felt like with international football, because you would have, say, 1 game a month, 2 games a month, it was about being ready when them moments came. So I always felt international football was about them moments. And when I reflect on my journey, I remember the important goals were scored. I remember, obviously, the Euros final, the World Cup bronze medal, how that game went. Olympics, playing Brazil at Wembley again, like that was a big moment. But being ready for the big moments, I think I kind of looked at it like you're not being ready for the big moments, you're being ready every single day so that when them moments come, you're prepared. And I always remember once seeing a quote, and it was like, train so hard in the week that the games seem easier on a weekend. And when we won the FA Cup, the Continental Cup and the League with City after 3 years, and we had such a competitive group of players that it was almost like training when you did a 9v9 or something like that was harder than the game on the weekend, and we were pushing each other. So yeah, I think it just goes back to training really, and you always kind of dream of them big moments. I used to sometimes go to bed before a cup final and think, imagine scoring in a cup final, and then it happened. I scored here in the final at Wembley, and it was such a big moment. My family was in the crowd. My niece, she was only 4 months. I did her a little heart signal. But yeah, when things like that happen, it just makes all that hard work worthwhile, really. But I can count on my hand probably 5-6 times that them moments happened. But on a long career, it was certainly worth it.
So what about your mindset? We've talked about you having a strong mindset, Jill, but I, for example, would feel anxious and nervous before those games. I don't think it ever holds me back, because I've sort of grown into knowing that once I'm on the pitch, I feel okay. But certainly before games, I used to really struggle with like performance anxiety and not being able to sleep, not necessarily even being able to eat some days on the day of a game. But, my games aren't as big as yours, really, in terms of cup finals and going for leagues, Euros finals, all these bits and bobs. How were you able to, mentally prepare, and not only just prepare, but to fulfill, your role?
I think I definitely got nervous, definitely. Even as my career went on, the last probably 5-6 years was the most nervous I ever was. And I think people perceive as an experienced player, you'll be okay. But I felt like there was more pressure on me. Okay, you've played for England so many times now, you've got to perform, there's no excuse. Maybe as a younger player you think, oh well, if I have a bad game, I'm a younger player, I'm grown into it. So you didn't have this like backup excuse. And I did actually have a lot of imposter syndrome in them last few years. Like when I remember playing, say like Millie Bright, Leah Williamson, Steph Houghton, Lucy Bronze, all these players, and you step out onto the pitch, and I probably deep down didn't feel like I was good enough. And I used to have to try and kind of get rid of them thoughts quickly, really, because you were in big moments. But what I did was I was quite good at being like, right, Jill, you can, I want to say smash people, but you can put in a hard tackle. You've got that Mackham inside here, like, you can do that. You know, if somebody needs to track back, you've got it in your legs, you can get back. And then going forward, I'd just always like visualise, right, try and receive in the pocket, half turn, play your wingers, play your forwards. And I used to just simplify the game. So I was like, right, there's 3 things. You know you can do it. Go on the pitch and just do it. So I would always kind of have this imposter syndrome. Like, I remember playing with Kelly Smith, Katie Chapman, all them players, Faye White, and I'd look round, and I remember at first, Rachel Yankee, I thought, God, I'm on like a game of FIFA. These are like my heroes that I've grown up watching. And then quickly it'd be like, right, Jill, what's your job? Someone's believed in you. They've put you on this pitch. And I used to just simplify it, and it stopped all that, like, outside, like, God, the crowd's here, we're in an FA Cup final, there's all this pressure, there's maybe millions of people watching at home, don't let your family down, don't. And I just focused on these things, and I think it did really help us. So it was probably something I taught myself, really. I can't remember ever being given that advice, but just simplifying, really. You know, like on the cube, simplify.